Howie Hawkins went on the show The Hill Rising with Crystal and Sagar. Crystal's pretty legit. Sagar has a lot of anti-immigrant, kind of xenophobic rhetoric. Not a huge fan of his, but they interviewed Howie Hawkins last week, who is now officially the Green Party uh, nominee for president. So let's check out this interview that they did.
Nominee for the Green Party. He's been endorsed by the Socialist Party of America, and he campaigned for initiatives like the Green New Deal as early as 2010.
Wow.
His running mate is Angela Walker, a former Socialist Party vice presidential nominee, and Howie joins us now via Skype to share more about his campaign for the presidency. Welcome to the show.
Good to see you, Howie.
Good to be here. Thanks.
All right, make your pitch. Why are you running?
We need economic justice. We just released our Economic Bill of Rights, something that Roosevelt called for in his last two State of the Union addresses, 1944 and 45, picked up by the Civil Rights Movement, and the Democrats have had a president with both houses of Congress, and they've secured none of these rights, which include a job guarantee, an income above poverty, affordable housing, comprehensive health care, lifelong public education, and a secure retirement. And this is a big issue because it's a life or death issue. Working class life expectancies are declining in this country. And then, of course, the Green New Deal is about climate action as well as economic recovery. We're going to need it in this coronavirus depression. So we've got a program to get to 100% clean energy and zero to negative carbon emissions by 2030. And in the
that part's kind of important if we actually want to have an habitable planet to live on. Joe Biden is obviously not going there. Donald Trump is not for sure going that route.
Big issue is this new nuclear arms race. The Bulletin of the Atomic Scientist has their doomsday clock the closest it's ever been to midnight. Right? None of the major presidential candidates have talked about this issue. The last bilateral treaty between the United States and Russia is about to expire next February 5th. That's strategic arms. It's a life and death issue as well. So we have peace initiatives. We want to cut the military.
Yep. Chomsky points out the two biggest threats facing the world currently, the threat of a nuclear war and climate change.
75%, bring our troops home, pledge no first use of nuclear weapons, and then go to the other nuclear powers and say it's time for complete and mutual nuclear disarmament. With the support of the 122 nations that 3 years ago agreed to the text of the Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons. So those have been our top three issues. Now we got a new life and death issue, and that's the coronavirus.
Yep.
And Trump's gave up. He's a loser. He says, coronavirus, you win. We're moving on. And meanwhile, tens of thousands of people are dying.
Because Trump doesn't give a shit about the people. It's because he wants people to get back to work and make money for the capitalist owner class, so the stock market keeps going up. As long as the stock market's happy, Trump could give two shits about how many people die or suffer as a result.
So I don't know where Biden is. He should be calling for a test, trace, and quarantine like every other organized country in the world.
Well, so
These
that's
two parties
one thing
are presiding over a failed state.
That's one thing I wanted to get with you, Howie, which is that your purpose in this race and the way that people are looking at you. So you've made the Green Party in particular, and your candidacy has made a pitch to disaffected Bernie Sanders voters. However, in a recent Politico story, they've been saying that many high-level officials who were on the Bernie campaign say this time around they don't think that there will be as much defection to the Green Party because they view Trump as an existential threat, and they're probably going to vote for Biden instead. Why do you think people should vote for you if they see your role as a spoiler?
They should vote for what they want. If they supported Bernie Sanders because they want Medicare for all, because they want a full-strength Green New Deal, they want an economic Bill of Rights, they want college for all, and student and medical and debt relief, you vote for Biden, you basically disappeared yourself politically. You should vote for what you want and make the politicians come to you. Don't waste your vote on something you don't support. And, Jeff Weaver and the other, party hacks at the top may, be talking about as negative. But I'll tell you, a lot of Bernie Sanders people is coming to us because they want to keep fighting for those things.
Yeah, that's why I'm supporting Howie. Hopefully he can get on the ballot here in Washington State. Because, again, Biden doesn't support Medicare for all, doesn't support Green New Deal, doesn't support tuition-free college, doesn't support nuclear disarmament, doesn't support drastically gutting the military-industrial complex, all the things that Howie Hawkins and Angela Walker support. Again, like Howie said, vote for the policies, vote for the candidate that actually is going to support those things.
Yeah, and you're certainly speaking, the audience of this show, there's plenty of disaffected Bernie Sanders voters who are very sympathetic, I'm sure, to the views that you were laying out, as I myself am. Speak a little bit, though, to the strategy, because I think this is one of the questions. The Bernie Sanders approach was essentially to use the Democratic Party line and the fact that we have this sort of default two-party system, to use that Democratic Party line to change the Democratic Party and move it left and embrace some of the positions that you're talking about. Your approach is a different one, which is to try to build from the ground up a third party, which, has historically been incredibly difficult to accomplish, where we have some models in recent history of parties being transformed. You could argue that Donald Trump did something similar with the Republican Party or the Tea Party, or in the opposite direction, the DLC back in the 90s.
I don't know how exactly Trump has reformed the Republican Party. He stands for the exact same things that all of them have. He just doesn't have a filter. Republicans have always been the party of the capitalist owner oligarch class. They've been deeply entrenched with racism and xenophobia and religious bigotry and all that stuff. Trump's in lockstep with that, so I don't know how exactly he's reformed it.
That really changed the Democratic Party and moved it away from its working class base. So why do you think the model of moving forward with a third party rather than trying to use the Democratic Party apparatus and have that revolution?
I mean, Jesus Christ, you look what they did to fucking Bernie Sanders' campaign, and obviously Bernie had a lot of failings himself, his campaign strategy, he wasn't willing to go after Biden, etc., but the Democratic Party is where revolutionary ambitions go to die. So you actually need some type of third party, to get established and to yield some actual power to get shit done that we need. I mean, Jesus Christ.
Sanders was talking about is the way to go.
Well, Bernie Sanders has showed us. He got elected as an independent to mayor of Burlington, then Congress, then Senate. He won. He's run twice now for president in the Democratic Party, and they cut him off because the establishment, they're in charge in the Democratic Party. They let progressives make speeches, but when it's time to make decisions, it's the establishment. It's the corporate wing, the people that Biden represents. So I think Bernie Sanders has made our point.
And Howie, I mean, I know you've even been critical of Bernie Sanders or even AOC in the way that they've talked with the Democratic Party and their line in order to back Joe Biden. Why do you view Biden as so antithetical to your interest that you could not get anything of what you want within his administration, so much so that you're willing to run?
Jesus Christ. I mean, it's fucking obvious. He said during a pandemic, mind you, Joe Biden would veto Medicare for All, somehow was able to pass the House and the Senate, and his response to this massive amount of police brutality that we're seeing from people protesting police brutality during these Black Lives Matter protests, shoot him in the leg instead. I mean, come on, Jesus Christ.
Even risk taking votes away from him and risking a Trump presidency. I'm just presenting what the opposite view is for you.
Sure. Well, first of all, I think the risk of a Trump presidency is sinking fast. I mean, this guy just got beat by a bunch of TikTok and K-pop teens who bamboozled and beat him on his rally last weekend. His polls are sinking. I think the emperor has no clothes, and now people are saying, yeah, the guy really is naked. So I'm not so worried about Biden now. Trump now. Now, Biden's record, he, as a senator in the Judiciary Committee, shepherded through Scalia, Kennedy, Thomas. He was central to the architecture of the mass incarceration state. He was for a balanced budget. He was with the DLC, the Democrats for the leisure class, as Jesse Jackson used to call him. He was central to that. That's his whole record. He's a war hawk. He's a fiscal hawk. He's not with the people.
Yep.
So, this is an opportunity for people to vote for what they want. And we may not win the presidency, but a big vote can give us leverage going forward. I got 5% running for governor in 2010. Andrew Cuomo wanted to run up the vote to get ready to run for president, get more than his daddy got, Mario Cuomo, get more than he got when he was first elected in 2010. We got 5%. He couldn't take us for granted. And then he adopted 3 things that he had never supported before after that election. a ban on fracking in New York, a $15 minimum wage, and paid family leave. So if you vote for what you want to make the politicians come to you, they can't take you for granted, and you've got some power.
Yeah, that is an interesting point. Is basically like, look, I've argued here on this show the main innovation of the Democratic Party over the past, say, 30 years has been counter-scheduling, right? Sort of making a show, making a big display of throwing the left of the party under the bus because they say you have no other option. So I understand the argument of this is a way to actually gain power to show no, you can't take our vote for granted. The left has another place to go. What would you consider to be a success or a victory in that regard?
Well, one thing is in 40 of the 50 states, the vote we get determines whether the Green Party has a ballot line going forward. And if the Green Party is going to grow into a major force and party in American politics, we got to begin electing thousands of people as we go into the 2020s. Having ballot access makes it a lot easier to run. So in most states of those 40, it's 1, 2, or 3% of the vote. And that creates a scaffolding for the Green Party going forward. So that's one thing. If we get to 5%, we get public funding for our 2024 general election from a fund that the Federal Election Commission has. So those are benchmarks. And the big thing is we want to move the debate. You know, Bernie Sanders gave voice to a sentiment that's been there, the polls show, since Truman, and that is for a national health insurance program, Medicare for all.
Tuition for college.
And he moved the debate on that. And we want to do the same thing on all these economic rights, on peace initiatives, and on a serious climate action program. I mean, while we're worried about the coronavirus, you know, it's over 100 degrees in one of the coldest places on Earth, up in Siberia right now. We're in big trouble.
Yeah.
So we got to have real solutions, and real solutions can't wait.
Howie, just one thing I want to return to, which is, you know, you're casting very much yourself as a carrier of Bernie's legacy, and yet Bernie himself says he's going to vote for Biden. So how do you reconcile those two things?
Well,
Bernie's always been a sheepdog for the Democratic Party.
Problems we've always said is, you know, people go into the Democratic Party to change it, and instead the Democratic Party changes them. And you can follow that from when the populist movement, the People's Party, cross-endorsed William Jennings Bryan in 1896. Wave after wave of progressive alternatives have decided they'll go into the Democratic Party, and they disappear. They get lost in the sauce. Because when you vote for Biden, they don't know you're a Sanders progressive. You voted for Biden and what he stands for. And he told Sanders in the last debate, you know, Medicare for all is irrelevant to the coronavirus crisis. I mean, if that's what you want to vote for, fine, but it's not what you were voting for when you voted for Bernie Sanders.
And Howie, what is your view on the police reform debate and what the federal government could do?
Well, we've been talking about defunding the police, which means redirecting some of those resources to social services that can handle the problem better than the police. Like if you're homeless, instead of charging them with vagrancy, how about we find them a home? So that's good, but there's not enough money in the police budgets. We need a major federal investment in these communities that have been segregated and discriminated against and exploited for generations. And that's where our Green New Deal comes in, because we'll have a major investment in public housing, mass transit, a job guarantee, an income guarantee. Those kinds of things will help those communities rise up. So that's one thing. The other thing is, it's one thing to tinker with police practices like chokeholds, but it's another to make the police accountable to the community. We need community control of the police. The big problem and why the police get away with murder and other crimes is that they police themselves. That doesn't work. So we need police commissions that have the power to hire and fire the police chief, clean the force of the racists and the sadists, negotiate contracts so they don't provide special shields to misconduct, look over the budgets and the practices, and have the ability to investigate and discipline officers for misconduct. Then they're working for us.
I mean, sounds a lot better than Biden's shoot him in the leg, right?
Instead of themselves.
Well, Howie, we really appreciate your perspective. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks.
All right, so there's the Hills Rising interview with Howie Hawkins, Green Party candidate for president. Angela Walker is the vice president candidate on the Green Party ticket. I will be supporting Howie Hawkins. Hopefully we can get him on the ballot here in Washington State. So like they said, they can get that 1, 2, 3%, whatever it is in each state. So they're automatically on the ballot going forward. And then, like you said, even it's like, I believe 5%, then they get the federal matching funds from the FEC, and we can actually build a third party option that actually is by and for the working people, for the working class in the United States, and opt out of that corporate duopoly that we currently have with the Democratic and Republican parties that are bought and paid for by special interests, and that's who they do the bidding of. Peace. Much love.